Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are doing my February book wrap up. So I read 10 books in February. I'm currently on my 11th. I don't know if I'll finish it by tomorrow, which is March 1st. So I'll show you what I'm reading anyway, but 10 books I finished in the month of February. I am pretty proud of this. They're not little books, they're pretty big. So today we are going to be talking about the books I read, what I rated them, would I recommend them, would I not, was it a good reading month, all of the questions. So let's get into the video and talk about the first book I finished in February. Alright, so the first book I finished in February was House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas, of course. This book came out the 30th of January. However, I don't think I started reading it until the 31st, maybe? I think I started it end of January, but I didn't finish it, so it kind of continued into February. I know I finished it very early into February, maybe like the 2nd or 3rd. This was the first book I finished in the month of February. I have a whole video about this book. Spoiler video, full spoiler, all my raw reactions, all my opinions, all my thoughts, me reading it right there with you. So go check out that video if you really want an in-depth kind of idea and opinion that I had on this book. But I was really going back and forth. I enjoyed this book. Was it my favorite ever? No. But would I highly recommend it? Yes. I just love anything Sarah writes. So I was going between a 4 and a 5. I'm not gonna pick one because I really don't know. I feel like there's a ton of things I really enjoyed. There's a ton of things I really didn't enjoy. I wouldn't say a ton, maybe a handful. But going between a 4 and 5 on this one. This was a chunky book. I was very proud of myself for finishing it as fast as I did. But this was the first book I finished in the month of February, and I rated it between a 4 and a 5 star. We'll end it there. The next book, again, I had already started reading this. I was so close to the end. Honestly, if I wouldn't have had that book, I probably would have finished this in January. But when that one came out, I just needed to read it. So unfortunately, I didn't finish this book in January, but it was Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. And I also really enjoyed this book. It is very highly talked about, which is why I was so interested in reading it. And I made it a goal of mine to read all of Caraval, which I read last month. So go check out my wrap up for January. But I read all of Caraval. I just didn't get to these before the end of January. I ended up rating this one 4 stars. You can tell it's the first in a book. It didn't knock my socks off, but I definitely enjoyed it. I loved the world immediately, and I knew I was gonna want to read the rest of the series. So I ended on a 4 stars for Once Upon a Broken Heart. So of course, immediately after Once Upon a Broken Heart, I had to go into The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. This book was a 5 stars for me. I cannot express and describe the amount of pain that my heart went through at the end of this book. This was probably my favorite book out of the entire series. Even when I think about it, it was just like I was at work too, I think, when I was reading it. So much was going on, so many plot twists. I was like, what is happening? Heart ripped out of my chest, throw it on the ground and crush it, because that's how I felt at the end of this book. That's it. 5 stars. Then after that, I of course ended the trilogy with A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. I was a little nervous going into this book because I heard a lot of people were disappointed in it. It was very highly anticipated. It had recently come out and it just wasn't living up to everyone's expectations. So I was a little nervous going into it. I didn't have my own expectations. I was just, I was already on a high from the other book. I still enjoyed it. I rated it a 4 stars, so of course wasn't my favorite, but I just love the world and these characters so much. I feel like they're fast reads, honestly, so it helps because I'm just like flying through. I'm enjoying it. I'm eating it up. So A Curse for True Love ended up getting a 4 stars for me. last month or this month. I'm still in this month, but in the month of February, I ended up rating this 4 stars. I am glad I read it though. I'm so glad I read the series. Now I need more. I just need more. All right, then believe it or not, after that, I went into Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. Now, I will say some of these books are in recent videos, so I'll try to like put in the iCard the videos that are associated, because obviously you get a little bit more of my thoughts in those videos. But Magnolia Parks, I went into because, you know, everyone talks about it, everyone, and I needed to know what it was about. I needed to know if I loved it, if I hated it. I loved it. 5 stars. Again, I ate it up. I loved this book. It was so fun. Don't get me wrong. It is toxic. I am very much aware of that. I feel like that's why it's so polar opposite. You either love it or you hate it. I understand that it's meant to be toxic. Like, that is the point. And I still loved it. I did. It was like I was watching a movie the whole time. And I did not want to put it down. So loved this. I also listened to the audiobook on Spotify. Loved it as an audiobook. I felt like I could really like understand and visualize the characters better by listening to their voice. So yes, 5 stars. I love this book. I love it. I honestly really like it. And I love Jessa's writing. I felt like her writing, I had so many lines in here that I just thought were beautiful, and like the way she put them into words, I'm like, that is my thought. I loved this. Magnolia Parks, 5 stars. 5. The next book we went into was actually The Invisible Life of Addie Laroo. This again was part of a video that I posted in February. This book I had on my shelf for probably 2 years, a very long time, longer than I would like to admit. Brian bought me this book because I saw it actually when it first came out. Obviously, like, this is still the like exclusive edition, so I had to have gotten it a while ago. And I just didn't read it. I don't know, I really wanted it, and then it kind of just fell off of my radar. Didn't really think of it, didn't really speak to me. And then recently I was like, I just need to get it off my shelf. Like, people are reading it now. And so I decided to pick it up. I am glad I waited to read it, because I feel like if I would have read this a while back, I would not have enjoyed it. It just wouldn't have been something I was interested in. And waiting, this is definitely something I would be interested in now. The concept, the whole idea of it, the writing style, I really enjoyed. It was not a 5 stars for me. It ended up coming out to a 4 stars for me. Primarily, I didn't know if it was like right book, wrong time. I was really having a hard time the first 40% of this book. I would read a chapter, put it down, pick up my phone, do something else, read a chapter, put it down. It was just like a constant cycle, and I get upset with myself because I'm like, you just need to sit down and read. Like, throw the phone across the room. Don't look at it. Just read. So the first 40% of this book was very hard for me to get into. After that, though, it was going a lot faster. The plot kind of picked up, and I enjoyed it. I cried. I had chills. I really enjoyed it. So this, I'm glad I waited, and I'm glad I got it off my shelf. 4 stars. Then I decided to pick up If Only I Had Told Her by Laura Nolan. This book I read probably the same week it came out. I picked it up, and I was like, you know what? I just feel like I want something that's gonna wreck me, absolutely obliterate me. So I picked up this book. I was disappointed. Again, I have more thoughts in the video, but to summarize, it's broken into 3 parts. Each part is a different point of view. So the first part, I enjoyed. It was fun. Well, it wasn't fun, but it was cool. It was interesting to see the point of view. Second point of view lost me after the first 2 chapters of that point of view. Then the third, I was confused. I'm like, why? What was the point of this book, if I'm being honest? Like, honestly, I wouldn't have been missing out if I didn't read this book. That's just my opinion. So I gave it 3 stars. Obviously, I read it fast, so I couldn't have hated it. Read the first book and you'll be fine. you don't need to know. You don't need to know the extra information because, frankly, I got to the last chapter of this book and I said, that's the last chapter? I only have 2 pages left. 3 stars. I then read my first Allie Hazelwood book with Bride. I know this is not her typical writing. She usually writes romance, but I saw this, again, it came out right around the same time as If Only I Had Told Her. And so I decided to pick it up. I knew going into it wasn't like a very highly fantasy book, if that makes sense. Like, there wasn't a hierarchy. It wasn't a ton of information. It's just like, okay, there's a vampire and there's a wolf. You know, that's what I knew going into it. So as my first Allie Hazelwood book, I enjoyed it. I read it quickly. Was it my favorite book of all time? No. Would I reread it? No. I ended up giving it a 3.5 to 3.75. I couldn't rate it under 3 because I did enjoy it. Like, I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy the book. It just wasn't my favorite. Like, I have far more fantasy books that I would recommend before this one. Though I do want to try some more of her books. I would be willing to like read some of her other books, the romance and stuff like that. So Bride was the next book I read, and yeah, gave it 3.5, 3.75. I hate giving point something, but it's honestly like I can't give it a 3 and I can't give it a 4. I just can't. So somewhere in there. Getting down to the last 2 books. So the next book I picked up, it's not a new book, but I haven't read it, and I had only read one Lynn Painter book before, so I decided to pick up The Do-Over, and this is like a beautiful copy, by the way. It has like the sprayed edges. Love it. For some reason, I've like read through all my fantasies. I've read through all of my romances, like even though I have a lot of books on my TBR cart, I just feel like I have nothing to read. So I picked up this book, honestly, on Valentine's Day, which I didn't realize it was a Valentine's Day book. So I really should have read it, you know, around then, but I didn't. Anyway, I loved this book. I love Lynn Painter, period. That is the quote. That is it. I love her. So far, every single book I've read, so 2 books, have been a 5 stars, 6 stars. I loved her writing. I loved the concept. I'd never read like a Groundhog's Day, repeat day kind of trope before. And I thought it was cool. I was a little bit nervous going into it that it was going to be very repetitive and boring. It was not. The first few chapters are a little bit, but the events and the activities that take place are not repetitive. So I feel like that helped. I flew by. I loved the main character in this book. It hit the spot for what I was wanting. It was quick. It was a nice break from like what I had already been reading. 5 stars for The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. The last book I read, which was actually 2 days ago, was Daisy Hates. I had to get back into the series. I just knew I had to. I couldn't stop thinking about Magnolia Parks. So decided to pick up Daisy Hates, and I actually read this while I was on vacation. I bought it the day before we left and then read some. When I got home, I was at 20% and I finished it the next day. That's just how much I couldn't put this book down. They go so fast. Again, love Daisy, love Julian, 10 out of 10. Loved this book. I ended up rating it a 4 stars, so I really did enjoy it, but I loved Magnolia Parks a little bit better. So that was the last book I finished in February. Now, you might not be surprised, but the book I'm currently reading is Magnolia Parks and A Long Way Home. So this is why I don't know if I'm gonna finish it by tomorrow. I have this much left to read. Definitely doable, although I do need to get this video up tomorrow is my hope. So we'll see how long editing takes, exporting, uploading, all of the things, and maybe I'll finish it. But this is the book I'm currently reading. Anywho, overall, I feel like I had a fairly good reading month. 10 books, very proud of that. I feel like some of these could have been 2 books. 10 books, and honestly, I didn't have a lot of low star ratings. I think 2 of them stick out to me. that being If Only I Had Told Her and Bride. The other ones I really enjoyed and I recommend. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Give me some of your thoughts and opinions on these books if you read them. Let me know if you have any questions, if you want to know any more about the books. I can either link videos to you or we can just chat in the comments. I am hoping to put this up tomorrow, so the 1st of March, and I will say I do have some Disney videos coming out. I'm a little bit worried because I know this channel's not Disney focused, but I filmed, so I feel like I might as well put them out. So just let me know your ideas down below if you've watched this far into the video. I've had a few ideas of either posting it on the days I post or sprinkling the Disney throughout the book contents with the days I'm supposed to post. So the book content would post on Fridays and Mondays, Disney would be scattered throughout, or I could post this on Friday and a Disney one Monday and then a book one Friday and then, you know, vice versa. So if you've watched this far, thank you. I appreciate it. It helps me, and I see every comment, I see every subscriber, so I appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.